If we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. They know that one? Hijacked you. And to make our official council meeting for the month of October official, I'd ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Pezek.
Here.
Gutenkopf.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Bram.
Here.
Polumsky.
Here.
York.
Here.
Hipskin. Absent. Healy.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Morley.
Here.
Wagner. Absent. Mulliner.
Here.
12 present, 2 absent.
12 present, 2 absent. We have an official quorum. And our first item on our agenda, as we can see up here today, is a tribute to the one-room schoolhouse celebrated by Conrad Fisher. In our audience, we have Superintendent David Pernot. David, if you raise your hand. And our principal from Conrad Fisher, Mrs. Bailey, who will introduce our beloved guest today, who did a great job about a little over a week ago. I thought they were so terrific that they said, why don't you come and perform for us at City Hall? And here they are. Mrs. Bailey, take it away.
Well, first, we'd like to thank you for having us tonight. This is an abbreviated program that we celebrated at the one-room schoolhouse last Sunday, September 25th. So tonight we're going to do Old Dan Tucker and Soldier's Joy. So, Mickey, take it away. The next number is Soldier's Joy, and they will be accompanied by parent Jim Stick-Schulte and orchestra director Barb Scott. those are 42 of our finest Fisher students who have been working on this production since the very, very first day of school. Hard work pays off. Congratulations, you did an awesome job. To the City Council, we hope that puts you in the mood for a great meeting tonight. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Bailey. Dr. Pernod, we appreciate your leadership. Elmhurst is all about education and history, and today is just a great example of how that all comes together. So God bless. Great job, guys. And our second and fifth graders at Conrad Fisher and their teachers. I know Pat Mull's out there somewhere. And thank you so much for everything. God bless. And we will give a couple minutes here while the room clears, because although everybody's welcome to stay for the meeting, we we understand that we're probably not as entertaining as the kids. Although it depends on the meeting. Great job. Thanks, moms and dads, for your dedication of your kids as well, too.
Is it?
Kinda tough. Where's my cup?
They would have wanted cherry or something. Oh, gosh. That's homemade. Parent food for the kids. There's really.
Bring it. It shouldn't be one. Just roll it out so.
I think it's gonna be,
Interesting.
I don't get it. Classes. They show up every year too.
Yeah, you don't have to do that anymore, Pam?
They haven't done that this year yet.
We follow, no, we
Steve.
We know they're.
Said she's still not here yet.
But
Parents can, teacher can just watch the tape.
it's just like any reality show, right?
Yeah, but in the audience, make sure they see that.
It's a significant drop in audience.
There's the bench.
Right.
All right, as the room clears, we'll go on to item number 4, which is receipt of written communications and or petitions from the public. At this time, if there's anyone with any written communications and or petitions from the public, please rise and present those to Clerk Spencer at this time. Anybody? Hearing none, I will go on to the public forum portion of our meeting, which allows any resident from Elmhurst up to 3 minutes to speak. And Clerk Spencer, is anyone signed up for public forum?
Mr. Mayor, tonight, we don't have anyone who has signed up for public forum.
Very good, very good. All righty. I will close the public forum portion of our meeting at this time and go on to our consent agenda. At this time, is there anyone who has a question or might you want to vote no on any particular item on the consent agenda? Please indicate that at this time. Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to pull 3 items.
Okay.
Item G, item J, and item L.
G, J, and L. Okay. G. And Alderman Mulliner.
Item E.
Item E is in Edward. Okay.
God.
Anybody else? Alderman Morley, Mr. Chairman?
Item P, as in Paul.
He is in Paul. All right, anybody else? Haven't heard none from anyone else. I would ask for a motion and a second to approve the contents of the consent agenda, less items E, G, J, L, and P. Motion by Alderman York, second by Alderman Brown. Clerk Spencer, if you please be so kind to call the roll.
York.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
Hipskin, absent. Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Wagner, absent. Muliner.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. That motion passes. The consent agenda, less items E, G, J, L, and P passes. Clerk Spencer, if you'd be so kind to read the recommendation on item E, please.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Works and Buildings Committee that the bid submitted by In Situ Forum Technologies USA, Inc. for the base bid project work in the amount of $935,494, and for any additional work be accepted, and that the city attorney prepare the appropriate resolution. Respectfully submitted, Public Works and Buildings Committee, signed by Jim Kennedy, Chairman, Bob Dunn, Vice Chairman, unsigned by Chris Healy, and signed by Diane Gutenkopf.
At this time, I entertain a motion and a second. Chairman Kennedy with a motion, Alderman Gutenkopf with a second. Discussion? Chairman Kennedy.
I will defer to Alderman Mulliner, who pulled the
Alderman Mulliner?
Yeah, I'm in favor of this report, but I just want to make sure that everybody understands that one of the components that I hope we're looking at as we move forward with the study, the RJN study, is the need to not only line the main sewer lines, but also work with the homeowners to line the lateral sewers going into their homes. And I just want to make sure that we don't drop the ball on this and just focus on the main lines. I want to make sure that we're also focused on the laterals as well. I know we won't do them, but we need to make sure the homeowners are aware that they're going to need to do that. And I hope RJN comes back with that as part of the recommendation.
Very good. Chairman Kennedy.
Just a quick thing to add, Mr. Mayor. Certainly you're exactly correct. The laterals are going to have to be part of the solution because they're more than twice the footage of what we have as a city exposure in terms of sanitary sewer lines. The work that we're talking about here from this plan complements very nicely to what RJN is doing right now from the smoke testing. I think they're doing that again this week. I think City Manager Grabowski is nodding yes, so we should be done with that this week. And this will, again, complement very nicely, and we'll see the report here coming up in the next month or so and take action appropriately.
Very good. Well done. Any other discussion? Alderman Healy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to point out that I was not at the meeting, so that's why my name does not show up on the report. Otherwise, had I been there, I would have supported the report.
Well noted. Thank you. Any other discussion? Hearing now, we can do this by voice vote. Oh, Alderman Brown, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a quick question. Obviously, the sewer lining is being proposed for the south side for a reason. It seems, though, that the pattern of the lining is a little bit here and a little bit there, for a technical term. Is there any reason for that? Was there input from our current study, comprehensive study that we're doing, or why were these streets picked as they are today?
Chairman Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, as I stated earlier, many of the areas that were identified for this sewer lining were a direct result of what we've seen from the smoke testing so far, and a little bit of what we've gone through in the second round here. From what Mike Hughes talked about when we had this in our meeting, there's a lot of input that comes from city staff and the issues that they see in different areas, and those two things coupled together was why this area was selected for this year's round of sewer lining.
Thank you.
Very good. Any other discussion, questions? Hearing none, I ask for a voice vote on this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say no. Motion, report passes. And we'll go on to item G, which is another report. Clerk Spencer, if you'd be so kind to read the recommendation, please.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Public Affairs and Safety Committee to approve the layout of the proposed route and the 50-50 sharing of all costs above the initial $3,000, not to exceed an additional $1,500 in cost to the city, and that the city attorney prepare the necessary document. Respectfully submitted, Public Affairs and Safety Committee, signed by Patrick Wagner, Chairman, Paula Pezza, Vice Chairman, and Michael J. Brand.
All righty, and at this time, I ask for a motion and a second to put this particular item on the floor. I defer to the Vice Chair if she'd like to put this on the floor. Vice Chairman Pezza with a motion, seconded by Alderman Bram. Discussion. I'll go right to, I'll defer to Alderman Gutenkopf. Okay,
Right.
Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Vice Chair. I pulled this report because I wanted to highlight a couple of things, and while I appreciate the expediency of putting it on the consent agenda, I think that this is such a big change for the turkey trot. I thought this would be an opportune time to point that out. The turkey trot is going to run a new route this year, and I'm partly pulling this because I'm the first ward alderman, or one of the two first ward aldermen, and the new route comes through the first ward. So I wanted to talk about that a little bit, because we're really happy that the runners will get a chance to come through this area, and we'll get a chance to show off a little bit. This year, the turkey trot recipients will be new nonprofits that haven't been part of the recipients of funds raised by the project in the past. And because of that, the organizers of the run are expecting a higher turnout. A higher turnout means that a new route was probably going to make life easier for everyone, since the old route was getting pretty crowded. So I think this is a great thing. I'm really excited that the turkey trot's going to come through this area, and that the potential to increase participants exists. The new route is going to inconvenience the First Ward residents a little bit, so I wanted to take the opportunity to alert people that, in a way that's not just passive, that they'd have to come look this up, because it'll start on York and Spring Road, go north on York Road to the railroad tracks, cut across to Prospect, south on Prospect, and then around the college to Grace, and back over on Elm Park to Cottage Hill. So this is a new route right through the center, past some of the real showcase of downtown Elmhurst. So I'm thrilled. I'm in support of this, but I thought it was an important opportunity to call out the new route, the fact that it's Thanksgiving morning. It'll be a little inconvenient, but it's all for a good cause, and we're really excited about it. I think residents that are going to be affected by this are going to get notified. I don't think it's possible to over-notify people that something like this is going to happen. So anybody who's watching today will get a chance to hear about it. The city's going to send out information. You'll see signage leading up to Thanksgiving about what roads are going to be affected, but it will affect the center of town. So I am in support of this report, but I wanted to make those points. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. I just want to correct you. I think you were great. You explained it well. It is going to still start at York and Villette, as it's always started. You mentioned York and Spring, so not a problem, just probably just a slip. But we want to make sure that that start position does not change. I see Dan Gibbons out there nodding his head, because he's been there 27 years, is it, Dan? And so while the course is changing, the start is not, because we want to make sure we don't lose anybody. And the typical turnouts to this event, 6,000 to 7,000 people, and growing every year, which has been terrific. So appreciate the accolades, and I think it's a great, wonderful event that we have and cherish. So any other discussion, questions? Okay, hearing none, ask for a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, say no. Report passes. On to item J. Clerk Spencer, if you could please read the recommendation.
Therefore, it is the recommendation of the Development Planning and Zoning Committee that the City Council authorize the city attorney to prepare the proper documents for the formal City Council approval of Kathy Maloney and the Feinzall Community Marketing Firm to continue to provide consulting services for the City of Elmhurst for a one-year period, with a one-year option to allow for a formal review after 1 year. Respectfully submitted, Development Planning and Zoning Committee, signed by Stephen Morley, Chair, Danny Polumsky, Vice Chair, and Norman Leader, Alderman, 2nd Ward.
Very, very good. And at this time, I entertain a motion and a second. Chairman Morley with a motion, seconded by Vice Chairman Polumsky. Discussion, Chairman Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is a recommendation from committee that the city continue in its relationship with Fines-All Community Marketing. They've been working with the city in this capacity for about a year and a half, a little less than a year and a half. They were up for review right around March, April of this year. And coincidentally, it was the same time that City Council was considering a new city manager. As I'm sure you'll recall, during this process, we put on a hiring freeze. And although the Fines-All contract was not technically covered by that hiring freeze, the committee members felt that it was a good idea, since in effect, these folks are working directly for the city as a contractor, replacing city employees that are no longer employed by the city. We felt it was appropriate as a city to hold off, as a committee, to hold off on reviewing Fines-All's contract. They operated under city manager authority for about 3 or 4 months, to allow the transition of the bridge between Mr. Borchert and Mr. Grabowski, which has happened, obviously. So when they came back for review a couple of different times, and they have, as kind of it kind of developed over their tenure with us, is they were constantly asked to highlight what they have done or some of the services they've done for the city. So attached to our recommendation is their Excel report, which explains stuff that they've done over the last year. The highlighted stuff in the report is stuff that was not necessarily determined in their contract, and certainly that's the flexibility of the city staff, primarily Assistant City Manager Kopp, has in dealing with this vendor. There's certain things that they did. They also created what we call a dashboard, which gives a snapshot of leads coming into town and where they fare. So that's a little bit of what was considered as a committee. At one point, we were entertaining maybe a 2-year deal at a reduced rate, but in deference to City Manager Grabowski, we felt it was more appropriate to stick with a 1-year deal, allow for maximum flexibility. As I'm sure everyone will recall, the city basically eliminated its development and marketing department about 2 years ago. And that's one thing that became apparent in review of Fines-All, is that they actually became the de facto go-to marketing department for a lot of the city staff. Mr. Grabowski, the mayor, Assistant City Manager Kopp, Fan Werner. It was very apparent in our committee that whenever a marketing lead or any sort of question, even remotely in their realm, came in, they just handed it off to them. The question was asked, well, what would happen if Fines-All wasn't there? What were they doing? What would we do? And the answer from city staff was, well, they're actually doing the work, a lot of the work that 2 former employees did. So that was our choice, to reduce city staff and go out with a vendor. Again, I would say this, the committee itself relies heavily in situations like this on city staff to tell us what's working and what isn't working. I will say that, and it's also mentioned in the report, that I think a lot of the stuff that Fines-All did in the first year that they wasn't necessarily on the radar to begin with, attending certain meetings, getting Facebook up and running, Twitter up and running, a new visitor and tourism website, various input to marketing campaigns. Basically, they were a jack of all trades in that. Good news is that the committee, I think, was looking for a little more focus, and the city manager actually reiterated this, that we think that they did a good job in getting a lot of stuff up and running, a lot of stuff they have up and running, the website, Twitter, Facebook, all that other kind of stuff. Now that the heavy lifting has been done, it can be maintained with minimal effort. And I know that in speaking with the city manager, he does support them, but he's very appreciative of the work they've done. Now he's asking them to refocus some of their efforts. And the last thing I'll say is that this is a kind of a unique situation. Most cities of our size actually have an in-house marketing and development group. So it's kind of a challenge that we're faced with, that we don't have that. But that's what we're dealt. So the recommendation out of committee is for a one-year agreement with Feinzoll to continue to work with city staff in the city's marketing efforts.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Questions, discussion, Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pardon me. This is a concern that I've had with the process we've gone through to hire this vendor in the past, and I think it's important that we revisit this issue. We have the right to contract with a service provider without going out to bid. It's a professional service. We are not required by law to seek bids for professional services. I fully understand that. However, I argue that it is in the taxpayer's best interest for the city to explore other vendors, something that we have not done in the case of this particular type of service. I'm not questioning whether or not we need the service. I do think that it's important to promote Elmhurst to potential businesses that we're looking to have move here. What I question is how we establish the fee, how we go out into the marketplace and assess that this is an appropriate fee for the services provided. We are talking about a contract with a total value of $43,000. I find that to be a substantive amount of money for the city to spend. I know that we're supporting other similar types of efforts, and I'm discouraged that we did not take advantage of the opportunity at the end of the contract to verify that indeed these are market rates and the types of services being provided are standard. We've never worked with anyone else, and we have not, it has not been brought to the council proposal from any other firm that offers the same services. So I'm very disappointed in that, and I am not comfortable supporting this contract in what feels to me like a vacuum of information. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Questions, discussions? Alderman Palomsky?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support this for many of the reasons that Alderman Morley has stated. In talking about the rates, what I have found is that for marketing professionals at a director level, not even at a vice president level, Feinzoll falls either in the middle third or the bottom third. So I felt comfortable with that, but also knowing that some of their projects have not really come to fruition yet. They've gotten some things up and running. I wasn't sure, well, I was confident to say that it wouldn't be a good time to see somebody else step in if they've already introduced a couple initiatives and haven't been able to see them through. So I feel comfortable with this decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Other questions, discussion? Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few questions about the report at hand, and then a general question in regards and comments in regards to the overall need to hire back this particular marketing company, being Feinzoll. The report states various things that I've highlighted. It states that it's I think it was actually in the recommendation even, the committee discussed a one-year contract with a one-year option to provide an opportunity for a formal review after 1 year. I'm not sure why we would necessarily need a full second year to do a formal review, but that's not my question. My question is from the standpoint of the actual contract of Feinzoll expired in April of this year, 2011. My assumption is, and it is not clearly stated in the report, so I want to make sure if this moves forward that it's clear, that this is a renewal of the contract dating back to April of 2011. Since that is when their initial contract ended, I assume that to be the case, so I pose that to the committee. The other question I had was, or comment I had was in regards to performance criteria. There was a lot of information provided to us in this report, so I thank the committee for that. There's multiple discussions on this issue, and there has been multiple discussions on this over the past, I don't know, approximately 4 years. What seems to be a little bit misleading to me, and since I happened to be at the committee meeting where it was discussed, was the the graph that shows, and it's titled Elmhurst Economic Development Dashboard, through May of 2010 through August of 2011, it shows leads and prospect status, et cetera. If you look in the lower left-hand corner, it shows Finesall and the City of Elmhurst emblem, which does mean to me, and I believe it was mentioned in committee, that this is an overall leads and prospect dashboard for not just Finesall and the work that they have done, but for all the work that the Elmhurst Economic Development parties have done. That's all our consultants, that's the city staff, and including Finesall. And I believe that was actually mentioned in the committee, as I stated before. My concern with this is, with the information before me, I have no solid evidence that this current marketing group is performing, and we should continue to renew their contract. There's general leads, and some of which have panned out, which is great for the city of Elmhurst as a whole. I think that this is an area that does need to be filled. I'm just not sure if we have the right company filling this need. It has been requested by former Alderman Pat Shea, these very details of having specifics on what leads have been done, have been acquired by Finesall in particular, and what has actually transpired into coming to the city of Elmhurst. With that, I find it hard to move forward with renewing a contract where there's no evidence over the past couple of years, if I'd be so bold to say few years, for this marketing company. The last thing I want to say is that it really comes down to is return on investment. And I don't know if I'm getting my bang for my buck here, or should I say, I don't know if the city of Elmhurst residents are getting their bang for their buck here, because there's no evidence in here that states that that we are being, that this company is successful in doing what they have done the past few years. So I'm not sure why we would consider continuing to renew their contract. The last thing, 2007, they were paid $30,000. If you increase $30,000 over the past 4 years, that would be, by 3%, that would be $33,000 and change for the 2011 year. We're proposing in this contract of $42,500. That's a 40% increase since 2007. That is significant. I'll raise my hand for a bonus like that at my work, because I would love to see 40% in approximately 4 or 5 years. So with that, I cannot support this. I have no evidence that the performance criteria was met. I have no evidence that we're getting the return on investment that we should, especially at the dollar amount that's being proposed here. Thank you.
Alderman Pezza, and then I'll go to Chairman Morley.
Thank you, Mayor. We also debated this firm much last year in March of 2010, before the April 2010 vote to rehire this firm, which the prior council and City Center had decided not to renew at $75 an hour. And last April, this council had voted to rehire them for $85 an hour, which I guess is in reference to a significant increase. And during that discussion, there were concerns. I actually watched the debate again the other day to refresh my memory. And the concerns from last March are still concerns I have today, and I unfortunately have to say none of them have been verified. We were told after the vote went through that we would receive every 2 months a report, update, some type of review of their productivity, and that never happened. Very disappointing. So what I do as part of our monthly accounts payable is, one of the things I request every month is the invoices from all of our consultants, because that's the only way I have to actually measure what's going on and what I'm paying for. And I actually have all 15 months here before me that I've requested. I've reviewed them. And do I believe there is a niche after reviewing these invoices that does need to be filled? Yes, I do. I think we do need somebody to fill this niche. Basically, what is on these invoices is the majority of what we're paying for is
retrieving and returning phone calls and emails. That's not all they do. There are some odds and ends and other things, but when I say majority, I'm talking probably 80% of the invoices, that's what it covers, for $85 an hour. Do I believe we need to be attentive and responsive in this department? Yes, absolutely. It's important for our community. But I want to know, where is the level of expertise? When I review everything I've seen, I'm not seeing that level of expertise to quantify that $85 an hour number. I'm not sure why anyone would pay anyone $85 an hour to deliver the services that have been rendered from what I've reviewed. You know, in one breath, we did all approve the Morley amendment, and I supported it, and I still do. It was during budget discussions, and we did decide to do a hiring freeze, and I think it made sense. Part of that hiring freeze was to not allow 4 police officers. We are short 4 police officers. Very core and critical service. We just recently decided it was okay to hire back 2. I think that's great. But when I put it into perspective and think a new police officer who works 40 hours a week, putting their life on the line for our community, gets about $60,000 a year, yet in the next breath, we are going to approve giving $43,000 a year to somebody that works 8 hours a week to return phone calls and emails. As a taxpayer and as an alderman, I just can't justify it. I cannot support this. On this agenda, I just supported giving $50,000 to the Elmhurst Chamber of Commerce to promote and support our local businesses. I think this is a key component to our community, and I totally support what we just did with that $50,000. It's very important to this town. But once again, do we need to fill this niche? Yes, we do in some capacity. Should it be filled, from what I've seen, at $85 an hour? Absolutely not. I cannot support this. I do not support this. And I would respectfully request that instead of doing this by a voice vote, if we could do this by a roll call vote, I would like to have a record of the vote on this particular item. I'd appreciate that.
Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Listening to the conversation, I'm not surprised that there are fairly strong opinions on both sides of the argument. You know, I think the report out of DPZ is well-written, and certainly Chairman Morley and Vice Chairman Polumsky, you know, have made additional comments. But on the other hand, I understand and hear the other side of the view. And when I say it's not surprising, it's because I know I've been contacted by non-elected, non-city staff people on both sides of the issue that feel very strongly for, feel very strongly against. I've talked to enough people to lead me to believe that this is a good investment. The one specific comment I'd make, and a little bit in reference to what Alderman Bram said, a little bit in reference to what Alderman Pezza said, I think it's important that we look at the whole economic development picture. So when we're referring back to 2007, or even we're talking about whether we hire a police officer or not, I think that's a little misleading in that our economic development staff is basically 0 right now. We don't have somebody on staff that is dedicated to economic development. We basically eliminated that as a department. You know, I know Than Warner still is involved, and Assistant Manager Kopp is involved, but there were 2 full-time positions that were let go that were full-time economic development. So when I compare the dollars that we as a city are spending now compared to the dollars we were spending back, whether it was in 2007 or 2010, we're spending much less on economic development now than we were then. So I don't know that we can look at this individual contract and say more or less raises. I look at it as how much money are we spending as a city on economic development, and I know that we're spending less today than we were in 2007. I certainly, like I said, I certainly understand the opposition. I think marketing by its very nature it can be something you love or something you not love, depending on who's sending the message. It's something you agree with or disagree with. I understand that. I personally am supporting the report. I think $43,000 is an adequate amount based on the service we're getting back from Feinzoll. Thank you.
Very good. Alderman York.
I'd like to just follow up on what Alderman Healy just suggested. I too have received inquiries on both sides of the coin on this one. I try and take a lot of my time in public service to avail myself to committees and commissions and whatnot, and go to EDC and go to City Center. And so I hear a lot of different things from a lot of different people, some good, some bad. I think going back to what Alderman Bram said, in 2007, we had at least 2 people on staff. It wasn't until after I was elected to serve that we let one person go, I believe pretty quickly after the 2009 elections, and then the other person was gone not too far after that. So it was in response to a rather turbulent budget period, and there were some things that had to change. That was one of them. I commend the city staff, Mike Kopp, the other consultants, Ken Bartels, and everybody who's done a great job at maintaining the momentum that the city has, and I think it's a very important thing. I think what Alderman Healy was trying to say is a lot of time marketing efforts are not real tangible. You don't necessarily see dollar for dollar results on the inputs. So I think that there's been a huge investment made by the city and by the current contractor, a lot of upfront time put in, and I think we need to let this thing kind of run its course for a little bit longer. I too would be in favor of getting some more detailed reports on a monthly or bi-monthly basis to see exactly what's going on, but I think to pull the plug now and to do another contractor search, I don't think I could support that. I respect the work the committee's done. I know this has been a huge topic of conversation, and it's been good, I think, overall for everybody involved. So I will support the report. I think it's important that we keep the momentum going and we review and make any changes that need to be made at some point down the road based upon some further results. Thank you.
Alderman Levin?
Well, first of all, this is a 2009 contract with the city. I think it was the first year for fines, or maybe it was 2010, but before it was City Center. So when we say it was 2007, they were here, but they were working for City Center, doing a little bit different. I don't think that it's the time to go out and bid this. You could bid any one of the professional services you want every year, but you need a certain amount of continuity. You could say, let's look at legal services every year. You could look at the other consulting services, but there's a continuity that starts developing where they understand the community, they understand what's going on, leads are developed, programs are started. So I don't think it's the time to change. In terms of what they do, it's more than answering calls. They are setting up websites. They're working on Explore Elmhurst. They're doing other activities. I attended a real estate broker's open house, and it was a very good program for the vacancies, and the brokers responded very well. Even answering calls can't be underestimated. If it wasn't fines all, it's not a switchboard operator who's going to take a message. Someone has to sell our city, our downtown, our other business areas to the people who are calling and explain to them why this is a good place to be. I know they actively recruit for businesses that seem to be targeted or could be targeted for our community because it's a business that's lacking. They go to other communities and say, how would you like to open a business here in Elmhurst, and here's why. So they do other things, and it's an important function that we are being pretty economical about in terms of not filling it with 2 full-time staff members. Comparing apples to oranges on a police officer at $60,000, by the time you add in benefits, I would put it at close to 100. And I guarantee you we were spending a whole lot more than that for the 2 full-time staff. So in conclusion, I will support this. I'm not saying they're perfect. I think they've done a good enough job that they deserve support for another year. And I think that the committee, I sat in on the committee meeting. I saw, I should say maybe a little bit more than half of it, but I think the questions were answered and that we should give it another year.
Very good. Mr. Chairman, back
Thank
to you,
you.
sir.
Just a couple of points of clarification. Kathy Maloney, who's one of the partners and owners of Fines All, used to consult for the city and city center 4 or 5 years ago. That was her dollar amount. Kathy Maloney is an individual consultant, not Fines All the company. Okay, that's the difference between 75 and 85. It's a one-year contract, it's a one-year renewal, basically a renewal of what they already have, or of what we agreed to a year ago. There is a 3 or 4 month float in there, like I referred to, that has to do with the freeze we put on, self-imposed freeze, till the city manager got up to speed. So it's a one-year contract. I will say this, City Manager Grabowski was very specific in the meeting that the contract would have a 30-day cancellation clause, termination clause, if you will. This is very similar to the work that I do for a living. I understand the ringer that Fines All has to go through, whether it's once a year, once every 2 years, whatever it is. Being a vendor, you aren't technically part of the family. You don't get benefits, you don't get a pension, you don't get insurance. And every year, you have to prove yourself. And that's what we're expecting. That's what came through loud and clear when City Manager Grabowski attended our meeting. That he supports the marketing of Elmhurst, he supports the work that has been done. He likes the work that has been done, but he wants to put, he wants to have input on it. He's going to have input, and he's expecting Fines All to perform. So it's a one-year contract, and I hope you support the report.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Mulliner.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly support the idea of marketing Elmhurst using any vehicle that we can. My biggest concern with Fines All is that I believe that they probably have some technical skills as it relates to being able to market things, but my concern is the stresses that they're putting onto certain departments within the city of Elmhurst. I know that these websites and things like that are being developed in-house. I'm concerned about those stresses. I'm concerned about the fact that that department is overworked as it stands, and now they're being asked to assist with some of these other technical things that Fines All doesn't have the staff to do. And from my perspective, that's something that if I was going to hire this type of a consulting company, I certainly would want them to be able to handle those type of things. I do believe that we do need to do as much marketing as we possibly can, but I want to make sure that we're not also stressing the internal departments any more than we have already.
Thank you, Alderman. Okay, Alderman Gutenkopf, and I'll go back to Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. One of the things that concerns me about the process that we're going through is that I see very little evidence of a strategic approach to marketing. I see lists of tasks, individual marketing tasks. Well, we created a website. We created a Facebook page. We did this, we did that, none of which is a marketing plan. And in order for us to be effectively marketing the city of Elmhurst, I would expect that we would be directing our consultants to help us approach this strategically, especially since we're not doing this in-house and we want to get the biggest bang for our buck that we can. I disagree with the alderman that said that this is kind of a soft project or a profession. It's not. Marketing plans have measurable results, and they include benchmarks that indicate that these things are being successful. Professional marketing doesn't involve, let's just throw some postcards out, or we're going to hold a thing without identifying clear goals. And I've never seen clear goals and clear benchmarks and clear requests for measurable results in the contracts that we've had with this company. They've never come back to us and said, we said we were going to do this many things and this is our target and we've hit that. We've brought in X number of businesses and this is exactly what they are. Instead, we get reports that say some lovely flowery, soft things like, we've had many people say that they like us, and we've attached 6 or 7 emails from last year from companies that said they like us. That's nice. I'm glad. But I still think that if you benchmark this kind of project, if if you develop a strategic marketing plan, then you've got some way of evaluating the effectiveness of your consultant. I do this with the consultants I hire, and I do this internally with my own work. So why are we not looking at this in a strategic way?
Thank you, Alderman. Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As Alderman Gutenkopf stated clearly, it's about performance criteria to me, and I haven't seen the details that say that the current marketing company that we are proposing to renew their contract for fits the performance criteria. I do give kudos. I'm not bad-mouthing anything that has been done. There has been good things that have come out of Feinzoll marketing. The real estate brokers open house, even though I wasn't able to attend, I heard very good things about that. I heard it was professionally done, well-run, and a very good turnout. So I just don't see overall that we're getting our return on investment, and there's been no evidence to me other than some tasks, some activities that have been done that what seem to have been successful, that this is the right company for the city of Elmhurst at this time. The reason why I wanted to speak one more time was to clarify some comments that were made on my comments, and that is in regards to my reference of 30,000 in 2007 compared to 42,500 in 2011. If it's Kathy Maloney in 2007, or if it's Feinzoll in 2011, it's irrelevant because we're talking about an hourly rate and a maximum number of hours that has not changed from 2007 to 2011. So we're comparing apples to apples here, no matter what the name of the company is at the time. In regards to staffing, it has been reduced over the past few years. That is the reason why we went out and hired Feinzoll and Ken Bartels, because I do think it was a prudent decision that we, as a council, have went with contractors or consultants compared to paying the benefit packages that we would if they were actually staffed in-house. So I think the decisions were well made. I'm just not seeing a fit. And I think this council, as well as previous councils, have given multiple years to see this performance criteria met, to see the return on investment, and I haven't seen it. To quote Jerry McGuire, you know, show me the money. In this case, show me the performance. I haven't seen the performance, and in all honesty, I'm a little bit tired of waiting. Thank you.
All righty. Anybody else? Hearing no other discussion, I'd ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll.
Morley.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Hipskin, absent. Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Wagner, absent. Mulliner.
No.
Pezza.
No.
Gutenkopf.
No.
Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
No.
Okay, that looks like
8 ayes? it
8
sounds like?
ayes. I'm coming, Mayor. 8 ayes, 4 nays, and 2 absent.
8 ayes, 4 nays, and 2 absent. Report passes. On to item L. It's an ordinance. Clerk Spencer, if you'd be so kind to read the ordinance, please.
An ordinance waiving bid and authorizing issuance of a notice of an award to a AAA concrete raising company for the 2011 sidewalk repair program, slapjacking, in the city of Elmhurst, Illinois.
And it's time to entertain a motion in a second. Chairman Morley, Kennedy, apologize. Vice Chairman Dunn. With a second, discussion, Mr.
I will
Chairman.
defer to Alderman Gutenkopf, who pulled the item.
And I
Thank you.
apologize for the
Thank you,
the
sir.
lapse of memory. I was going back and forth with the last discussion, so I'm a little tired, but we're okay. Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pardon me. I pulled this because I wanted to talk about the fact that this ordinance looks like we are opting for no bid contract when in fact this really isn't the case. The report that directed the city attorney to prepare this ordinance was on the last council agenda, and I wasn't at the meeting, but I understand the council didn't discuss it. I thought this was an opportune time to at least mention that this is a very specialized service. We have only been able to identify one firm that meets the qualifications we need for a bidder. A firm that had done work for the city is no longer competitive, or no longer actually in business, really. So we are down to this firm that provides this service at a very reasonable cost, and I fully support this ordinance, but I thought it important to at least make some comment as to why we are waiving bid and going right ahead toward authorizing this contract.
Very good. Okay, any other discussion, questions? Hearing none, I ask everybody, all in favor, say aye. Oh, this is an ordinance, I apologize. I will ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll. Thank you, City Attorney Storino.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Lipscomb, absent. Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Morley.
Aye.
Wagner, absent. Mulliner.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Gudenkauf.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. The ordinance passes. On to item P is in fall, a resolution. I'd ask Clerk Spencer if you'd be so kind to read.
A
the-
resolution authorizing the execution of an agreement by and between the City of Elmhurst and Kane, McKenna and Associates, Inc. regarding potential tax increment financing districts.
And at this time, I entertain a motion and a second. Chairman Morley with a motion, Vice Chairman Palumski with a second. Discussion, Chairman Morley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. No real issues with the resolution in front of you, but just before the meeting, there is an issue. There's a better clarification for Exhibit A, which is part of the agreement. Just before, at the beginning of this meeting, City Attorney Storino handed out a revised Exhibit A, which is a consultant services agreement. The one that was delivered in your packet had paragraphs 1.1, which is a Phase 1 review, which is what we all agreed to, a Phase 1 review for the 3 potential TIF locations. But also included in the services agreement in your packet was reference to paragraph 1.2, which is Phase 2, paragraph 1.3, or section 1.3, which is Phase 3, and section 1.4, which is Phase 4. Now, that did not mean that we would perform those, or have Kane McKenna perform those services, but I felt it was important that the exhibit better reflected what we were asking for. So long and the short of it is the new exhibit that you received when you came to this meeting only references Phase 1 review. That's all we're contracting for. It's what we talked about last week. Did not want to confuse anybody or lead anybody to believe that we were contracting with Kane McKenna for anything beyond Phase 1. So I pulled it. The exhibit that Mr. Storino handed out is more accurate. That's it.
Thank you, well noted, Mr. Chairman. Alderman Mulliner with a question?
I just want to make sure that I clearly understand this. So basically, phases, the middle phases are being eliminated. We're only doing Phase 1. Does that mean the not-to-exceed number was for, the initial not-to-exceed number was only for Phase 1?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Very good. Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Very good. Other questions, discussion? That is a resolution. You can do that by roll call?
Yeah.
Very good. Ask Clerk Spencer to call the roll, please.
Morley.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Lipscomb, absent. Healy.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Wagner, absent. Mulliner.
Aye.
Pezza.
Aye.
Gudenkauf.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. The resolution passes. And to item 7, committee reports. It is a recommendation. Clerk Spencer, if you'd be so kind to...
It is therefore the recommendation of the Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee that the City Council authorize the city attorney to prepare the amendment to Section 2.01 of the City of Elmhurst Municipal Code to adjust the ward boundaries as proposed in this report. Respectfully submitted, Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee, signed by Stephen W. Hipskin, Chairman, Kevin L. York, Vice Chairman, Mark A. Mulliner, and Scott M. Levin.
All right, then I'd entertain a motion and a second. Vice Chairman York, and a second by Alderman Mulliner. Discussion. Mr. Vice Chairman.
The report, I think, speaks pretty well for itself. Every 10 years, we're required to go through this task of looking, based on the latest census, in this case, it's the 2010 census, to look at the population numbers that reside in the current wards and make any adjustments necessary to realign the wards so that every ward has approximately the same population represented. So in this particular case, there were very minor adjustments made in 2 of the wards, but this was a task. It wasn't something that just happened in 2 seconds by city staff. This took some time and some computer work on the GIS side to make sure that we had everything lined up. You can see by the numbers that we're back in alignment. Everybody's got pretty much the same amount of population in the wards. This questions asked in committee revolved around, is this similar to what the state's doing and things like that? And of course, nothing that we do here in the city is really similar to what happens in the state, so that's a good thing. But we tried to take into consideration what we're doing here. We're a nonpartisan public policy body, so we just want to make sure that all the citizens have equal representation. They're equally represented by their elected officials. And what you see in front of you in regards to the report and the accompanying map is the result of that work. And I ask for your support. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Alderman York. Any other questions or discussion? Alderman Dunn.
When I first saw the revised plan for the map, I was a little surprised to see what looked like a little bite taken out of Ward 2. And there's some discontinuity in moving increasing that area in Ward 3 into Ward 2. But looking at the objectives of the redistricting, where we're trying to keep the population fairly equal among the wards and also minimize the disruption and trying not to implement too many dramatic changes in each ward. Looking at trying to move some populations through other wards to accommodate that, it would just be too disruptive. So even though we're going to lose a small amount of Ward 2, I would support this
Thank you, Alderman.
redistricting.
Very good. Any other questions, discussion? Hearing none, this is a report. We can do this by voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say no. The report passes. And on to item 8, reports and recommendations of appointing elected officials. First is from myself. Wanted to indicate to everyone that we did actually call a meeting with the higher-ups at ComEd last week, Wednesday. Meeting was with myself and 3 of the chairs, City Manager Grabowski, Assistant City Manager Kopp. I thought the meeting went very, very well. They sent literally the entire leadership of ComEd. There was probably 6 vice presidents in the room, and we were definitely heard. We impressed to them that we would like to have a public meeting and where all the aldermen, all the complete city council, as well as our constituents, will be promised that as well, and that will be in the near future. But more imminently, we wanted to talk about our current infrastructure, what's been done over the last 2 years since we've sat down with this organization 2 years ago after a tough storm. They promise us monthly updates, which they'll be working with City Manager Grabowski and Assistant City Manager Kopp. They feel that they are doing a lot, but you know, when we get hit with storms, we feel oftentimes that they're not. So the proof will be in the pudding as far as how much tree trimming they've done, how much re-looping they're trying to do. We've got these, City Manager, or Assistant City Manager Cap would be a little more technical than me with some of the reclosures and stuff that they're putting in to minimize when an outage is out, the numbers affected. But they will get us the data on a monthly basis, so we know that they'll be working, and we are working with them on the new legislation that'll be pushed this upcoming veto session. So overall, I feel the meeting went well. I think Alderman Wagner's not here, as well as but Alderman Morley was in the meeting as well, and Alderman Kennedy, I know, felt it was very productive. But naturally, the product will be in the results here in the near future. But rest assured, this council is all over this issue, and the public will have an opportunity to be heard as well as the entire city council. So, questions, discussion at ComEd, real quick. Alderman Mulliner.
Yeah, I would hope that meeting occurs fairly soon with the upper echelon from ComEd. I would hope that we don't end up with our regular appointed person showing up at the meeting to do his usual song and dance. I would hope that that's a public meeting so that the rest of the aldermen who are sitting here have an opportunity to ask questions and pointed questions about what's happening with ComEd as well, rather than just a small select group of aldermen. I think that it's important for all the aldermen and the public to hear what's going on with ComEd. I know that they have made some significant moves, and I'm hoping to see some reports from them that they can present to us as well as the public, explaining what their plans are for this town.
Absolutely. Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to reiterate, because I wanted to send the point across of what Alderman Mulliner just stated, and that is, I actually do have some concern, because a couple of weeks ago, we actually spoke about this meeting, and my belief was that we walked away from here with a consensus that it would be the mayor, the city manager, and the ComEd officials. To learn that other elected officials were there, I'm disappointed. I don't know what happened at that meeting. I assume there's no meeting minutes. I'm just as concerned on the north side of town as some would say on the south side of town in regards to ComEd's performance or lack thereof. I also agree with Alderman Mulliner. I look forward to hearing from ComEd firsthand, and in the future, I would recommend that we handle such a citywide issue before the full city council, because it is important for each and every one of us to have firsthand knowledge on what is discussed, and also have firsthand input on anything that is being discussed that would impact the full city of Elmhurst. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. And just so you know, we had chairs of Public Works, chairs of Police, Public Affairs and Safety, and our chair of Buildings in that meeting. And so we had leadership from all over town, and the main mission was to schedule a public
North side?
meeting. I'm the mayor. I represent the north side as well. So this meeting was to set up a full public meeting with the entire council. So you will have that time and that opportunity, and we are in the process of getting that scheduled. So, but we wanted to get something quickly done with leadership. We were able to achieve that, and you will be heard. Alderman Healy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ironically, about 2:30 yesterday afternoon, my power went out about 10 minutes. I received probably between 3 and 5 phone calls and texts, so I know it happened pretty much, I shouldn't say pretty much, it happened sporadically throughout the south side, and it was a bright, clear, sunny, windless day yesterday. So it was appropriate that not only are we talking about this meeting, but also the resolution, which we'll talk about in a little bit. I was not at the meeting on Wednesday, however, I fully supported it. I don't believe we can talk to ComEd enough when it comes to power reliability. I think I heard the mayor say that there will be the opportunity for the full council to talk to the various leaders. I believe I heard that as a result of that meeting that pretty much that same group that was there committed to coming back for said meeting. But I also understand and have felt all along that a smaller meeting was in order. That those are different types of meetings, that while you can push towards the same goal, and obviously everybody is, whether it's north side, south side, east side, west side, we're all pushing for the same goal. I myself have always favored for a smaller meeting. You can get more done in a smaller meeting. But just for and I think we do all understand the intricacies of what is going on here with the political aspects of it, the ComEd bill, if you will, the situation that ComEd is in, the situation we're in. They're quite honestly, there are some things that they won't or can't say in public that they will in private. And I think we all understand that. And we have to be able to trust, whether it's city staff, the mayor, or a small subsection thereof, to be able to have those discussions and in some cases negotiations with ComEd. That's not to say that big meeting with all 15 of us or 19 of us sitting around the dais and however, 7, 8 people from ComEd and giving the public the chance to talk isn't important. That doesn't serve a purpose too. It absolutely does. And we will all hear the same things, but I strongly support, even though I wasn't there, I strongly support a smaller meeting where you can have more in-depth conversation with ComEd. So I'm glad to hear the meeting took place. It's been a long process, and we still have a long way to go, but I'm happy that the conversation and the dialogue continues. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. And last on my little report, I thought the one-room schoolhouse event that was literally about a week ago, and today's exhibit of the kids who actually performed that Sunday was incredible. The one-room schoolhouse is doing very well. The museum, which had another event on Friday, many of the aldermen were here, and Alderman Pez, Alderman Gutenkopf, myself, Alderman York, I believe, was here as well, and Alderman Morley. I'm sorry, Alderman Leader. That event had over 300 people at it Friday night. The Sunday event had probably at least 200 to 300 people. So we're getting great turnouts at these events. It's great to see our young school children working with the museum. The one-room schoolhouse was meant to celebrate history and education, and I just think it was terrific. So I wanted to bring that up, and kudos to Brian Berghager and to Lance, the curator over at the museum, and all the staff and all the partners. And, on Friday they had the Art Guild, they had the Garden Club, Karen Exner from the Art Guild, and it was just a great collaboration and partnerships that were forged there. So kudos to that. And what else do we have here? I will leave my last one for an announcement because it's something different. But anybody else? We're good? Oh, Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to agree with your comments about the one-room schoolhouse tribute today. And I want to personally thank the Conrad Fisher students, as well as their parents, teachers, and principal for coming out and performing. It seems like they've been out here once a year for the last few years, and it's always good to see, and it's always good to see a packed house here in the city council chambers, because no slight to those present currently, but the attendance was standing room only for the tribute that was earlier this evening, so thank you to all that came out.
Very good. On to City Manager Kombrowski. Do you have something to add?
Just one item. Next week's meetings are on Tuesday due to the Columbus Day holiday, so I just want to remind the council of that and let the public know that. And we will be calling a committee of the whole meeting after committees next week.
Very good. For those of us of Italian descent, we will be celebrating, and as well as non-Italians as well. So enjoy Columbus Day on Monday. And to our next item, it's a resolution. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask you to be so kind to read the resolution, please.
A resolution urging Illinois General Assembly and the governor to modify the Smart Grid Bill.
And at this time, I'd ask for a motion and a second to put this particular resolution on the floor. Alderman Pezza with a motion, seconded by Alderman Bram. Discussion. Hearing none, I'd ask for voice vote on this.
Will cancel, but a voice vote certainly passes it.
Everybody okay with a voice vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say no. Unanimous in a resolution to push ComEd to do the right thing with this legislation and bring vital infrastructure to our community and reliability. And I appreciate all those involved with this whole process to really put the push to our public utility. On to item 10, other business. Anybody with other business at this time? Hearing none, announcements? Anybody announcements? Alderman Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Alderman Palumski and myself would like to announce a Third Ward Town Hall meeting upcoming later in October, Wednesday, October 26th at Angelo's at 7 p.m.
October 26th, Angelo's at 7 p.m. Anyone else? City Clerk Spencer.
Yes, I've got 3 announcements, Mr. Mayor. The Park District, along with the York and Villette Business Association, will host a Fall Fest on Saturday, October 8th, from 10 to 2 p.m. at the Fountain on York Street between South and Villette Streets. And the York Student Enrichment Team, also known as YSET, they were here early on this year, will host a fundraiser, Art, Wine, Food, on October 13th at Flight 112 Wine House. And if you need more information, it's you can go to their website, flight112wine.com. And lastly, the official hours for trick-or-treating in Elmhurst will be 3:30 to 7:30 p.m. on Halloween, Monday, October 31st.
Thank you, Clerk Spencer. Anyone else for announcements?
Yeah, I don't know if this is really an announcement, but I'd like to ask City Manager Grabowski. I think on October 10th, it's Columbus Day, I understand that, but I think there's an entire staff training day that day, is there not?
That's correct. City Hall will be closed to the public. Staff will be here for training day. Thank you.
Okay, yeah, I just wanted to make everybody aware that staff is working. It's a holiday, but staff is working that day. Thank you.
Very good. Alderman Dunn.
Thanks, Mayor. Alderman Leader and myself are also going to have a ward meeting. Will take place on October 18th, and we've been fortunate that one of our largest employers in town, Superior Ambulance, has offered up their auditorium facility for us to have that within our ward. So that will be October 18th at 7 p.m.
Thank you, Alderman. Very nice. Alderman Leader.
Just to second what Alderman Dunn has says, and I would like, hopefully the media will give us some publicity as well as the other ward meeting in the 3rd Ward, but we could use the publicity. We want to get as many people out as possible.
Very good. We appreciate the local media coverage we always get here at Elmhurst City Hall, and we also appreciate the aldermen who are always doing these town hall meetings, which is a good thing and really gets the feel of what's going on in our local wards here. I would like to make one last announcement that on Thursday, October 27th, Francesca's Amici is doing an ECAF day. 15% of any purchase on that day for lunch, dinner, et cetera, goes to ECAF. So please support Francesca's, but especially on Thursday, October 27th, where we support our kids too. And with that, anybody else? I'd ask for a motion to adjourn. Alderman Morley with a motion, seconded by Alderman York. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned, everybody.